How much of a chance, if at all, can we give to Frank Martin against Gervonta Tank Davis? I'm here to tell you guys, this is going to be a very competitive fight. I'm telling you, a lot of you guys, I'll be honest, like a lot of people are sleeping on Frank Martin, and I get it because it's Tank, but I really do think that Frank Martin poses a threat that no fighter has ever posed before. You know, we're watching Frank Martin, you know, do his media workout. He looked really strong in there, and I just looked at the physical size of him, and I said this in a prior video. If he can make weight in a healthy way and those pounds come off smoothly, there are no struggles in making 35, I think that we might get a really shocking fight. I'm not going to say that Tank loses, but if Frank Martin was able to pull it off in a decision, like, it wouldn't surprise me, you know, crazily. You know what I mean? Like, I know Tank's good. It's just this is a different breed that we're gonna see. You know, you guys are gonna see the footwork and the hand speed and the timing kind of be a little bit more competitive than we've seen it in the past. Not to say that I don't think that Tank wins. I still have Tank by stoppage, but you know, boxing fans know that it can still be a competitive fight even if there's a knockout. And I as much as I think there's going to be a knockout, I still think it's going to be a competitive fight, because for the first time, Tank's getting in there with somebody who's honestly just as athletic as him, just as intellectually intelligent as he is when it comes to the sport of boxing, the ins and outs, the X's and O's. Frank Martin's a very, you know, fundamentally sound fighter. He's very A to B when it comes to throwing his shots. He has good footwork, so I'm excited to see it. I think it's gonna be a good fight. I don't know how Tank's gonna fare with this guy, because Earl Spence even said it. He said that, you know, Tank's not gonna be able to do what he always does, and what he means by that is not giving up the early rounds. I don't think that Tank's gonna be able to give up early rounds like Earl Spence said. You know, this is a different level of opposition, and I still pick Tank to win, but he's not, I really don't think that he can give away, you know, the first 3-4 rounds against Frank Martin, because Frank, I think he understands that. He understands that to every opponent Tank has faced, he's bagged those early rounds, and he's given them away. And Frank Martin even said it's a gamble every time you do that, and it's true. But you know, Tank always banks on his ability for you know, to set up a shot and make sure that he's able to make his opponent feel comfortable. And when you think you're comfortable, you're not. That's what Tank always does. But Frank Martin is the first fighter that I've ever seen, you know, really call it out and say, Tank does this. He lets, you know, fighters bag a few rounds, and then he gambles and thinks that, you know, the fighters are always going to overcommit, which they typically do. But if Frank Martin has that solid understanding of Tank typically downloads information first and then, you know, implements a counter shot, a counter punch, then that's good. That's good to hear from Frank Martin, because most fighters, they just say, you know, we know he's a knockout artist, we're gonna go in there and do our thing. But Frank Martin, I have a weird feeling about it. You know, I have a weird feeling that he might be able to do something that, you know, we haven't seen any fighter do against a guy like Tank. Because whether or not you guys want to agree, Tank had back-to-back fights, you know, with the Ryan Garcia fight and then the Hector Luis Garcia fight right before that. He was pretty active, but now a year off, more than a year off, is it going to affect him? Are we going to see ring rust? Because I do believe in ring rust, but I understand that, you know, Tank has a level of talent that may make up for that ring rust, and we might get a stoppage win from Tank. But I wouldn't be surprised if we see some rust and then we see a good version of Frank Martin. It could be trouble. But my biggest concern for Frank Martin right now is making 35. You know, seeing him, see his frame, you know, his physique, he's very strong. You see his back, he's jacked for sure. So I'm just curious how this guy makes 35. He's a big dude. He's a strong and athletic 135 pounder. So I'm curious to see how well he's able to make weight. That's my only concern for this fight. A lot of people like to talk about how Tank cherry picks his opponents and says that, you know, the people he fights are either, you know, handicapped because of the rehydration clauses or because they've outgrown the weight division. I think Frank Martin may be on the latter. I'm not trying to make any excuses early on for Frank Martin, but I'm just so shocked he can still make 35, because he is a big 35 pounder. Like they're not built like that. Like any of Tank's opponents, you look at them, he's never faced a guy as like physically strong as Frank Martin is, you know, and Frank Martin's not just slow, he's pretty quick too. So I'm really excited to see this fight on June 15th, and you have David Benavidez and Gosdick on the co-main event, so it's going to be a really good event for the sport of boxing. I'm really excited for that. David has a lot to prove in this fight. He has to make a statement, because I feel like with a statement win, he could probably call out Canelo on the mic again, and maybe that's Canelo's last straw where he says, that's it, I'm going for the fellow Mexican. Even though he's a Mexican-American, I'm going to get him. And I'd love to see, you know, Canelo and David Benavidez. That's the fight we all want to see. Ultimately, I don't know if Canelo's going to get that $100 million like he's been asking for, but I can't say he doesn't deserve it. You know, you're talking about the cash cow of the sport of boxing. Canelo can basically do whatever he wants, and I understand that. But I think deep down, he does want to test himself. It's just, you know, he wants to get paid correctly. But I think one way or another, he can only fight so many people to the point where it's like, you know, people aren't really going to watch as much. You know, when you fight guys like John Ryder, even the Bivol fight, I was like, that fight wasn't worth... That fight wasn't worth the squeeze, to be real, because no one really like watched it. They just found out that Canelo lost. Like a lot of people weren't. Well, I watched the fight, but I know a lot of people that didn't, and he took an L for that. And I understand, you know, chasing greatness, do all that, but why not do it against a guy like David? Like if you really want to make that fight happen, do it against David. You know, now that you lost to Bivol, get that rematch. Fight David Benavidez. If you're not gonna fight David Benavidez, fight Terrence Crawford. Fight like somebody interesting, because if not, like obviously people within the sport of boxing are gonna get bored. They're gonna be like, you know, what are you really doing? So and people are talking about the fact that Canelo might fight Edgar Berlanga. It's just like, what? But going back to Tank and Frank Martin, I really do think that we may, you know, we're in for a treat no matter what, but I'm just saying we may be in for a shocking night, and take that as, you know, whatever you want. But I just have a funny feeling that, you know, a lot of, if Frank Martin were to win a fight, would it be, if Frank Martin were to win a fight against Tank, would it be when Tank's fresh, you know, and has been active, or is it now, you know, where Tank has had more than a year off, and he's been in jail, he's had to deal with so much outside of the ring, and Tank has said it, he has a lot to unleash, you know, he has a lot of frustration to take out, and he said he's going to take it out on Frank Martin. And is that going to lead to a more emotional Tank? We don't know, because if you guys even know about the sparring, and I don't want to say anything, I'm not going to say too much about the sparring, but I do know some information about what went down. But you know, no matter what, this is a different fight. It's a different fight, no matter how much success, you know, the general consensus is that Frank Martin landed a big shot, and not only that, but there's other stuff too. But I'm just excited. You know, I'm excited no matter what happened in the sparring. It doesn't really impact how I think about the fight, because I think it's different. It's going to be different when those bright lights are on. You know, the sparring is different from a main event where, you know, everyone always has a strong game plan against Tank. They think they're going to do this, they think they're going to do that. It's different when the bright lights turn on and Tank is making his ring walk, and you know you hear the crowd going crazy. I always say, no one gets me hyped for a fight in the sport of boxing the way that Tank does. It's just something different, because you don't know when the fight's going to end. He might put the guy to sleep in the second round, he might do it in the later rounds, but now he's facing a natural 35 pounder where he's strong, he's young, he's in his prime, he's a big threat. They've sparred before, so this is something that Frank Martin has been preparing for. It's fair to say that he knows how Tank fights, so he knows enough to the point where he can feel confident about winning. He said that Tank's team messed up by picking him, and you know, I'm not mad at him for saying that, because if you fought him and Frank Martin apparently had some success, why would you go after it again? You know, Tank definitely wants to challenge himself, and a lot of people are going to say Tank has to fight better opposition, and I would agree that, you know, besides Frank Martin, you know, prior fights, with the exception of Ryan Garcia, because of the catchweight, it's a little bit of gray area, he does have to make big fights happen, because he's at 35, he's approaching 30, like I always say. Guys like Shakur and Lomachenko, let's say he gets past Frank Martin, those are fights that have to happen if he intends on staying at 35. But I think it all starts with Saturday night, and Tank is, you know, he has a lot of pressure on him to make a big performance out of this. He has David Benavidez on the undercard. David could steal the show, and you know, who knows, have a better performance than Tank, but I know Tank's gonna come ready. He has something special for all of us, the boxing fans, you know, all the time. But I do think that this may be a more competitive fight than, you know, people are making it out to be. I'm still gonna lean towards Tank by a 9th round stoppage, but you know, who knows? We might see Tank get put on the canvas for the first time. You know, it might be one of those crazy nights in the sport. You know, I do believe in inactivity, and Tank hasn't fought in over a year, so we'll see how he does. I still got Tank, but Frank Martin, I can't sleep on him. He's gonna, you know, bring the fight to Tank for sure. He's gonna come prepared, and he's always in shape. So we'll see what happens. Thank you guys for watching. Leave your predictions down below for Frank Martin versus Gervonta Tank Davis. Thank you guys for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace. That's going to do it for another Nads Fight Media video, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. It's been your boy, Matt Nabong, with another video. Hope you guys enjoyed it all. Thank you guys for the constant support. Salute to y'all always. It's been your boy.